Hey everyone, how's it going? You're here today with me and Alex Lee. Alex Lee is the guitar player of Holy Grail. He's been being a professional artist for years now, I believe. Hey Alex, you started playing guitar when you were, what, 10 years ago? 9 years ago?
I would say a freshman in high school. That was like mid 2002.
Okay, so 17 years.
17 years.
Interesting. And then when did you start actually, not taking it seriously, but like when did you really get involved in a band where you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to put my focus on?
Oh, gotcha. That was 2005, actually. Yeah.
Okay. And was was that Bonded by Blood, or is that like...
Yeah, that was Bonded by Blood.
Okay.
I had a longtime friend. She was dating this kind of like punk rocker dude that was transitioning from punk rock to like more of like the thrash metal and heavy metal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when like the whole the emo scene, and that was a big thing, with My Chemical Romance and
Mm-hmm.
AFI and bands like that. So
Mm-hmm.
he kind of wanted to transition into this kind of like new hard rock kind of type of thing.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I understand. I remember those days too. I think, I was in high school around 2008, 2012, so I definitely remember that phase for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, what were your thoughts on that phase? Were you all about it? Were you like, okay, that's the emo stuff, I'm going to be on this side of the street?
It's really funny because I've never been on like one side. I've just always been like a guitar geek. So,
Mm-hmm.
like starting up as a guitar player, I was just listening to classics like Ozzy Osbourne,
Mm-hmm.
Metallica, Megadeth.
Mm-hmm.
A friend introduced me to Iron Maiden. And then later on, I had a good friend who was really into guitar playing. He was playing ahead of time, and he first showed me like Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen,
Mm-hmm.
and that got the big kick for guitar shred, I guess.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just more heavily focused on the playing aspect. Rather than what was hip, I guess, during the time. But I just kind of noticed just the imagery. You got like the short hair covering the face, the spiky back top. It was kind of really it threw me off because I never really noticed that type of metal scene growing up.
Okay.
Until high school. It kind of like everything happens in high school where like I guess you find yourself or your true self, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And then you have like the emo kids in one corner, you have like the metal dudes in the other side, and you have like the goth kids in like the math hall.
Yeah.
So it was, for me, it was such a I wouldn't say like a breakthrough in like growing up, because I always kind of felt like I was very sheltered growing up, so I didn't really know much about like video games and going to the movies.
Oh, so you were really not really like sheltered, but like you were really not involved in a lot of that stuff, right?
Exactly. No activities. Well, most of it was because like my parents, like I always wanted to play sports when I was little, but my parents, they never wanted to pay for it because they thought that I wouldn't really put my 100% into anything.
Yeah, so why invest in something you don't care about, kind of thing. Interesting. And so you went from being really sheltered to now like kind of traveling the world and going on tour. It's interesting.
Yeah. My parents were like, no, you can't spend the night at your friend's house. No, you can't do this. You're just, stay home and, work on the car with your dad. Yeah,
I had friends the same way, where, like, fortunately I was on the other end where like, oh, can I spend at your house? You can come over, and like, oh, my parents will let me. I'm like, well, do they not like me? It's like, no, it's just my parents. Like, it's not anything personal, trust me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So then when you started to get into like metal and growing your hair out and all that, what were their thoughts? Were they like, okay, this is a phase, this isn't something that's professional, what are you doing? Or were they
Yeah, exactly. They thought it was well, the funniest thing was looking back at it, like I just got a black shirt like at Target, and then my mom immediately thought that I was turning goth.
Yeah.
That was her initial like, oh, are you turning goth? Like, no, I just like, the bands I'm listening to, like, they're wearing like black and stuff. So I'm not going into a phase like I hate you, mom, and I hate you. It's so funny. I've always had a great relationship with them, but to them they're just kind of like curious as to why I'm dressing the way I am, because with their music they're more into like the pop music, and I think like my dad had like one Led Zeppelin album.
Okay.
But never really listened to it. I think it was just more given to him. But they're more into like Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Madonna.
Yeah.
So.
And so you had that same conversation everyone has where it's like, why do you like metal? Like they can understand what they're saying, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then well, I mean, it's funny because I remember growing up, my cousin, who's I would say close to 25 years older than me, he gave me and my older brother the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction cassette, and that was kind of like our first branch into like rock or hard rock at the time. But my mom, she never really like cared. I mean, she knew the song "You Could Be Mine" from Terminator 2, but that was basically it.
Yeah. Interesting. That's cool. Okay,
yeah.
So that you said that was 17 years ago when all this kind of went down, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in 2019, going to 2020. How have you evolved, right, in that like almost like 2 decades now as like a guitar player?
I feel more aware of my playing, and then.
Oh, sorry. That's what do you mean by that?
Oh yeah. So basically, a lot of times when I was practicing or learning a song, I really didn't know what I was really doing. I was basically going through a lot of guitar tabs, watching some videos downloaded from like Livewire back in the day, when YouTube wasn't really a thing. So just learning guitar tabs and trying to learn from books, but not really understanding like scales and modes, and why am I playing like a 3-note per string on this position when you could be playing it on an easier side of it's things like that where a lot of things make more sense when I'm playing the instrument rather than just kind of playing what the tabs are dictating for you to play. I can actually like play freely to how I want.
Okay. So when you started teaching yourself, it was kind of, I'm guessing, self-taught, right? When did that kind of music theory approach kind of start kind of coming into your I don't know if it's career is the right word for that.
Yeah. No, actually, it started out when I started realizing a lot of tablature out there. The transcriptions were sometimes off or really wrong. You'd have to play like a certain note, jumping like almost literally like halfway through the fretboard, and it was almost like it was some sort of like program that auto-generated like a tablature idea. So like if you're looking at a guitar fretboard, you're looking at like a 3-note per string, like on the frets like 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8. That's kind of like based on like a minor scale. You see like instead of the 5, 7, 8 to the 5 on the next string, going off to like the 12th fret or the 15th fret, and then jumping back to the 4th fret and the 5th fret on the high string, where it just like it doesn't make sense to play it in that perspective. So it really questioned me, like, are these tablature pieces like correct, accurate? And then that's when I kind of like dove into just kind of experimenting on learning things on my own, because a lot of these tablature pieces were just it just didn't make sense, or it was just too complicated to actually play. And so it was a way of finding an alternative to make it easier to play.
Interesting. So, and I'm guessing all your experience, right, self-taught through books. I'm guessing on tour with other people.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. On tour, I've never really learned too much on the road. Most of the times, it's just complaining about how we suck at guitar playing and we don't have enough practice time.
Yeah, I guess that's a common thing, right?
I mean, with the very few people that I did have some conversations, it was mainly more about guitar rigs and routing and gear and what's been working for them. So I got most of my I guess guitar conversations through friends post high school, and then also with the people that I work with today. because I work with a lot of guitar instructors too over at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
So I've been able to really pick their brain. And then two, Eli, my other guitar player in Holy Grail.
Yeah.
He's a music grad, so I've been able to kind of pick his brain too here and there. But most of the times, like if we're on tour, we just he'd rather just hang out and have fun rather than geek out over guitar.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Interesting. So would you, I mean, at this point, like in your career, have you ever considered like, hey, let me take, I don't know if you have time to take off, but like take a class or actually like maybe go pursue music theory like in college just to kind of fully bolster that end of yourself? Or are you more like, I'm kind of at a stage where I don't need that anymore? My learning would be elsewhere.
Yeah. You know what? There's it sucks because I'd love to take classes to actually like go to a school, but nowadays it just seems like a lot of classes for music. I mean, I guess college in general is it's super expensive, and I've talked to a lot of like the friends who went to school for it, and I told them like, what was it really worth it going to music school for the things that you learn? And I would say most of the 4 out of 5 they all say like, no, it wasn't worth it. Like the things that you can learn in school, you can basically learn online, or if you have some friends to just kind of crack open a book and just go through it. And I think too, it's just a thing where online everything's accessible now. So I even try to I buy courses. There's a guitar player, totally blanking out on his name right now. Let me see. Marshall Harrison. He has some courses online. Really, really great. Like he has like everything. Like lately, like guitar playing has been evolving into a playing style where you use your finger to pick the strings as well as like strumming. They call it like hybrid picking. So that's become like a big thing in guitar playing lately. I've noticed. Yeah. And there's another guy named Daryl Gable, and he's another like crazy guitar teacher, guitar player on YouTube. So they all have like really, really in-depth guitar courses that are, I mean, pretty affordable. Like, I mean, if you're looking at a 2-hour course for like $50, but it includes like hundreds of pages of guitar tabs and explanation, where it gets down to like the crazy roots of how to incorporate like certain scales into like really crazy patterns or mathematical groups. So I think that's where it really is now. I mean, a lot of times people used to go to MI back in the day because you had teachers like Paul Gilbert and some others teaching there, but now it's just, I don't know, it almost seems like it's a hype to go to MI or Berkeley or something.
Yeah. Interesting. So then is your YouTube channel, would you say that's your version of starting to become like a teacher at this and like do your own courses? Like, 'cause I know you have like Shred Talk and all that.
Oh yeah, well I try to incorporate something like that, but just to our audience now, fans of Holy Grail, fans of my other friend, Conan from Ex Mortis, and just fans in general. And I'd like to make it more of a full-time thing to do, but it's just been pretty rough. Mainly because you have like the big YouTubers that have like huge monetizations and things like that, so to get to that level, it takes up a lot of time and dedication to just strictly become like a YouTuber, so to say. A lot of these big YouTubers, they're not like people that go on tour or that have like bands. They just basically take the YouTubing as like their main priority. So
and that's what you want to do, right? Is your goal with YouTube to like become a YouTuber, or is it more just like another kind of outlet to like?
I totally think it's like more of an outlet. I think I'd be taking a huge risk if I was to go to pursue like the YouTube career, because it's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in the music business, what I've kind of realized, you know, you can put a lot of hard work and effort into it, you know, video editing and making up, you know, stories for, you know, a new episode, but then you know, you might get, you know, a couple of views, you might get lucky and hit like a couple thousand or so, but then it's kind of jarring when you can see like you know, a dude trips on a banana and like splits his pants and it gets like a couple million views.
Yeah.
You know, it's that type of thing. It's just the attention span for a lot of these the newer generation of people. You know, people like us, you know, we like to watch videos, and you know, we have I would say we have a good attention span to watch, you know, an entire review or an entire video of something that we like and enjoy.
Yeah.
But nowadays, people just kind of skim through everything, kind of like, you know, the whole thing with like Instagram. You know, they're just swiping just to see what's, you know, relevant, and then that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So what made you start? Because like if you look at your channel now, right? Like, it's obviously more polished. You have a little more higher quality content versus like years ago, where it looked like you're probably recording on like your laptop's camera.
Yeah. Basically, I had like an old Sony Handycam kind of thing, or like the old Sony Fiber Shots.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was when it wasn't like a big priority to get like big or to get a bunch of views, but I guess it was just my way of. Because that was when like MySpace was a big thing too, so I'd be able to post, you know, YouTube videos of me playing a guitar cover, or, you know, trying to sell something online. But nowadays, you know, people are using YouTube to really expose themselves and to make a career out of it. So it's almost like we've seen the change from like the beginning of YouTube to what it is now, where it's like basically everybody's TV.
Yeah. No.
So
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So for me, I guess, yeah, I'm just trying to use it for people that, you know, still watch my channel and like appreciate it, because I don't know, I've thought about, you know, making like an actual kind of DVD tutorial, kind of like the old school, like, you know, Paul Gilbert videos, or like the, just, guitar tutorials from the past, but in like more of a modern setting, and just kind of, not super strict, but kind of like in like a Shred Talk way, you know, where it's just very relaxed and it's not really like really rehearsed, but it's just more so just
like, this is me, we're gonna play this, let's just get
yeah, but also too, just incorporating, you know, the things, you know, that I learned through the years, and like my approach to like how I've learned guitar playing, you know, without you know, an instructor right there telling you to do this and that.
So for where you are now, right, like for someone like me, like I played for a couple years, I know I'm not that good, but I still enjoy it. For you, like, at least how I look at it, is like you're someone that's like really good and really up there, but that's my standard, right? Your standard is probably higher. Who would you kind of consider now are like people that are good guitar players versus like everyone else that's kind of looks good on Instagram but maybe is not like musically that good? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I gotcha. You know, it's weird because I still look at, like, you know, the heroes from the past, you know, when I started growing, you know, when I was growing up, you know, people like Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, you know, John Petrucci, basically the guys that you've always seen, you know, on, you know, guitar magazines growing up. I still look up to them as like, you know, like my top guitar players. Like, you know, Tosin Abasi, you know, newcomers like Jason Richardson, and some other YouTubers. Like I see them more of like friendly competition, where like that's the place where I have to be to kind of stay relevant. But at the same time, I don't want to change my style specifically to cater that kind of audience, because that's, you know, you're just lying to yourself of who you truly are and why you started playing guitar.
Okay, so it's less about trying to let me stay relevant in this regard by doing it because that's what people, again, that attention thing. But more about, okay, there's something new here, what can I learn from that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like if we were to bring it back into like the emo stage or the punk rock stage, you know, I mean, there have been a lot of artists from the past where, like, you know, they were like, you know, super heavy, and then they turned super soft because, you know, record label reasons, and you know, them wanting to stay relevant to what's popular today. So, you know, as a musician, I try to find things that inspire me from that type of music, and to incorporate it into my own. Yeah, because I mean, to me, I don't have like a favorite type of genre, and, you know, a genre that I dislike. You know, I try to find something good in everything that I listen to.
I see. So then I have maybe like a curveball question. So obviously, like, you're more into rock and metal and all that. What are your thoughts on like trap music and more EDM and that kind of stuff? That's probably on the other side of the realm for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there have been some EDM bands and trap music, you know, where they actually use like samples for like heavy guitar. I work with like a guy at work who's, you know, he produces his own stuff, and he actually wants me to like sample some guitar stuff, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to actually like sample stuff, because it's just like, you know, you're taking a part of you and just sampling it, you know, and then it's going to be like the next meme or something. But I don't know. It's cool. I can see where it's coming from, but I feel like it could be something cool, like if they wanted to incorporate, you know, part of rock into it, and use actual instruments, you know, because I've seen a couple bands. It's basically, you know, you're on like a DJ setup, you know, you're just kind of pressing a couple buttons and tweaking a couple faders here and there. There's definitely an art to it, but I don't feel it's as difficult as like actually, like, you know, playing an instrument, you know, taking years and years to perfect your craft. Which, you know, on the other side, you know, there will be a lot of guys on that perspective that are like, no, you're wrong, you know, there's so much work that gets involved into like making this, you know, the song. But and that's where like my naiveness comes, you know, because I don't know, you know, if it is really that hard or not. But I mean, just to like an outsider, it seems pretty simple. But it's cool, you know. I don't think it's something that's like terrible. But don't get me wrong, you know, there are some songs where you're like, well, what's going on there? But you know, that's what they were doing. Like, I mean, even in metal in general, you know, there's a lot of bad songs out there too. Yeah,
I think that's just the nature of like music and art, like in every regard. 'Cause I think like if when you listen to someone that does like trap, right, there might be a different like thing they're going for. And when you think about it, there's a lot of rappers too, right? And so maybe it's just a whole different competition space. But I think that, again, same thing with metal, right? Like, oh, he's shredding, but he's not good at shredding. Like, it's just show off. It's not like real skill.
Yeah. So like if you're shredding, you know, there's no musical taste to it, and you're not making any melodies, and you know they'll call them like the bedroom shredders, or you know that's all they do.
Yeah, that's cool. I never heard that one before.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Very cool. Okay. Can I totally do like a hard turn and go a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk video games.
Sure.
So you're a big video game guy.
Yeah.
I just bought a Switch, but the only game I have right now is Breath of the Wild. What are some good Switch games you would totally suggest?
If you're a fan of Mario, definitely, like, you know, there's the whole Mario Party, Mario Kart 8, Mario Odyssey as well. Even the Mario Tennis game's really great. And then, you know, the new Mega Man is really good. But then there's a lot of like just third-party games that were like, if you're you know, a PC gamer and you have Steam, there's a lot of third-party games that are now being available for the Switch. You know, either physical copy or you download it on the online market. But lately, I just got the you know, Zelda Link's Awakening. So if you're a fan of the original on the original Game Boy, that one's so far it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Is it just like literally just a remake with a new skin, or do you think like it's actually more?
Well, it's kind of interesting because the way it's played out, like the entire overworld, instead of like the screen, you know, moving to the next screen like a traditional Zelda game, it actually kind of like. It's almost like open world, you know, where you don't really change screens, but you just see like everything transition, you know, on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you still have like the the overworld look, but just no camera changes. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I mean, until you go into like a dungeon or something,
Yeah.
But so far, it just seems like it's just an updated version of the game, with new skins. But I mean, I've put maybe 2 hours into it, and so far, it seems pretty much the same with some new challenges here and there.
Yeah. So one thing I've like noticed, I think I got this from my YouTube channel. Like a lot of times you would play like classic, like video game songs, like on guitar and all that.
Yeah.
If you had the chance to go work and like compose the soundtrack for a video game, like is there a certain game in mind you would want to do, or a certain like genre, or not genre?
Oh yeah.
IP.
Totally. Like well, Konami basically has kind of gone down under. But I probably would have wanted to work with like maybe like the Castlevania series, because they've always had like a big influence in like kind of like the neoclassical kind of music theme, and it's really cool. Like in like Castlevania 2, you can totally hear like a rip off of like one of Yngwie Malmsteen's songs in the dungeon theme. Yeah, it's really crazy. So that's kind of like where I probably I'd be really interested in working, but I don't know. There's a lot of like Sega is a really cool one. I mean, like I remember the first Sonic the Hedgehog album is like great. For Zone 1, Zone 2. Sonic 3 took a lot of pop influences. Like there was that whole thing where Michael Jackson was supposed to work on Sonic 3 music. Yeah. So I don't know, but I think like if Konami was still good now, like they were back then, I'd love to work with them. That'd be great.
So this is probably me just not knowing. What is it about Konami that's going down? I know they don't have Hideo anymore, but like what is it about?
Yeah, well, basically like they were supposed to make the new Silent Hill game, PT. They had like a demo.
Yeah, I watched it the other day.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to work on it, and Hideo Kojima as well. But they fired Hideo Kojima. It was basically the Metal Gear Solid guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just seems like a lot of the games now that they're making, they're basically like remakes or cash grabs, and they moved on to like pachinko games in Japan, and their main focus right now, I think, is just mainly like keeping up with keeping the Dance Dance Revolution and like the arcade games still relevant, rather than making like really good games nowadays. It's just weird. The maker of Castlevania, he made his own Kickstarter for I forgot what it was called. I just had it right now. I think Bloodlust, something like that. I'm probably gonna get trolled, but yeah.
No worries. That's cool, man. So then, do you feel like video games? Obviously, video games are going towards that route of like microtransactions, loot boxes. Do you feel that's just part of the evolution of video game? Like that makes sense for it, or do you think it's like kind of dying in some regard, like the art form of it?
Yeah. Some of it's dying. There are still like some third-party developers that are keeping it real, which just shows that there's still a market for that. If because like right now, like arguably everyone's saying like Fortnite is like the biggest game right now, and microtransactions. I don't know. It's like it's interesting because they give you the game for free to play, but then they pretty much know you're gonna spend so much more on the microtransactions. So rather than keeping like how Blizzard with World of Warcraft, where you have to pay monthly, if they put the game for free to play, and then they keep like the microtransactions, it's almost kind of like you're slipping money, but you forget how much money you're putting into it because 1 year you've bought in like 100 skins, but then if you really think about how much you've paid, you've in reality you've paid for a game that would be like $59.99 at retail, you've paid like times 5 or so of that amount, so you pay way more than what you've originally purchased, which is really crazy. But people love it, you know. And I think that's the thing. It's just I don't think it's wrong, but at the same time, you know, it's up to you how much you really want to spend for the game, and how much you love for it. I guess it's kind of like people that, like I'm a big fan of the game Doom. You know, it's not microtransactions, but like I've tried to buy, you know, Doom on all systems that are available. You know, from the PC to the Macintosh to the PlayStation, Sega Saturn, you know, 32X, Atari Jaguar. You know, so I'm buying it even though, you know, I already have the game, but I've bought like all the revisions of it.
Yeah. Is that because of more just like it's a collector thing you know at this point?
Yeah, totally collecting purposes. But you know, I'm just a fan of the game, so like I'm putting so much money into it, knowing, you know, that like I already have the game. You know, I don't have to spend the money to play the same game over and over. But you know, these people that are like playing Fortnite, they're, you know, in a way they're paying so much more into the game because they love it.
So when you buy it, do you actually play it? Like, okay, my goal is to beat it on every system, or it's like I bought it, I'm not gonna touch that one, but I have it, and that's all that.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You know, like there's the part of like collecting that I don't really agree with, and that's like the you know, you buy it and you put it on a shelf and it collects dust.
Yeah.
You know, my thing is like if you buy something, you're supposed to enjoy it. You know, take care of your games, of course, but like, you know, play it, and just enjoy it. So I don't know. I mean, there are people that they used to buy like 2 copies of everything, you know, one to keep sealed and then one to play.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really wanted to go that route, that's kind of like the sweet spot. So you can play the game still, but then you also have a backup just in case anything happens to it. So, but then ultimately, like, they're just going to sell it, you know, within 20 years or something to collect some money.
Yeah. So it's more like an investment than it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, speaking on the topic of collecting, you have a lot of guitars. Do you actually like play all those, or is it literally just like?
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too. They're kind of like assets, right? So, with my collection, I've tracked down one of the most expensive Ibanez's that I could find right now, and that I could afford at the moment. There's still a very few left out there that I do want to purchase, but it's still, you know, we're talking like, you know, a couple $1,000s for just an instrument, which is, it kind of sucks it's gotten to that point. But you know, I have a lot of older Steve Vai gems that are very collectible. I have 2 of the John Petrucci signatures that are really highly collectible nowadays because he moved over to Music Man. But basically, yeah, I've collected them because, you know, I've loved those instruments growing up and like looking, you know, through, you know, online catalogs of them. But at the same time, buying them now because I know, like, if I was gonna wait, you know, till like retirement or whatever, like they're just gonna grow in value to the point where, you know, like vintage Les Pauls and vintage Stratocasters, you know, like tens of thousands of dollars just for a single instrument. So I figured buy them now, because I've seen people, you know, walking into Guitar Center, like, you know, out of retirement, and they've, you know, their dream was to buy like a Les Paul, and like now they've, you know, finally had the chance to, you know, save up some money and buy one, cash out. But, you know, now they're like 60 years old, 70 years old, and, you know, let's say they can't, you know, play as well as they used to when they're younger. So my thing is just like, if you want to, you know, make something of your music and you have guitars that you love, I'd say just buy them now, and, you know, just kind of eat up the credit, you know, and just kind of pay it off.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you'll enjoy it through a lifetime, rather than, you know, just buying it cash out and not really being able to use it to its full potential.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard though, you know, because some people can't really do that because of financial reasons. But
yeah,
I feel like if you really want it, there's ways.
So, like, obviously being a guitar player, being a professional guitar player, working at Guitar Center, when you see guitars that are worth, like, not just like getting like the vintage Les Pauls, but like any guitar that's worth like a couple grand,
Yeah.
Do you see? Okay, I understand why this costs as much. That makes sense. You're like, damn, this is overpriced, but that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it just comes with like the brand name, the woods they use. But I feel like in some sense, certain things are priced a little too crazier than what I would think.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talk about tone wood and using a part of the tree that resonates better with the neck. There's so many stories, but I don't know. It's just crazy. Like unless I find like a guitar that like really means what it's. I don't know how to say this, but you see like a $5,000 Gibson Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand why it's that much. I think it's because maybe they can price it because of its like legacy.
Okay.
People say reissue 67 or something, and it's priced at $10,000. I don't know. It's just, but it's not really the guitar from 67. It's profiled. It's built to the specs, but it's not an actual 67. If you want a 67, buy an actual 67 instead of a reissue. Which is funny because like I'm going to be doing a review soon, hopefully on one of my new Ibanez's I just collected.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me it's called the Ibanez Genesis.
Okay. And
that's based off of one of my favorite models I play currently. So back in 1987, the Gem was released, the 777. It's the locked-in screen,
mm-hmm.
and then they also released in yellow and pink.
Mm-hmm.
But as like a lower cost version, they released a model called the 500 series, so the 550.
Yeah. And
it's basically like a stripped down version of a Gem, but that came out in the same year, and they've re-released it as the Genesis collection. So to me, I'm going to do like a hands-on review, not more of like a versus, but more of a comparison,
mm-hmm.
because it does feel different. But then the Genesis actually feels more of like an updated version of the 550.
Interesting. So is it like, do you say like it's in the middle between those two, or is it?
I would say it's for fans of the original, it should satisfy them because it's just built to modern standards,
mm-hmm.
Where the original was like a one-piece design, one neck piece, one maple,
mm-hmm.
And then the new one is a 5-piece, so it's a lot more durable,
mm-hmm.
As far as like taking it on the road, or it's more susceptible to drops if you were to accidentally drop it,
mm-hmm.
Things like that. It's just made better than it was back then. But then some people are like, oh well, the metals used today suck compared to back then, but I mean, I used it for the Japan tour for 2 weeks, and it was solid,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Hey man, I know I told you 12, so let me go ahead and... Can I ask one more question for you?
Oh no, I still got some time.
Oh cool, yeah, then I'll take advantage of that. Well, so the one question I wanted to ask, like I mentioned, like clearly you've been doing this for a while. How do you progress from here? Like, would you say you're maxed out on your like guitar playing like skills, or is there more to go? If there is, what is that? Like, where are you going from here?
Yeah, so I feel like everybody kind of progresses, as they get older. It just depends on how you look at it, because there are some people that refine like their technique, so they won't learn anything new, but they'll just basically, if they're good at pen, they'll strengthen their pentatonic licks, or they'll strengthen their vibrato and their phrasing. For me, I feel like there's so much more that I want to do, and that includes like I was saying earlier with like the hybrid picking. That's something new that I never really got into, because I always thought like hybrid picking was a form of just like chicken picking, which you'll hear in like bluegrass and blues, and I kind of stayed away from it because that wasn't really my style of playing.
Okay.
But now a lot of these modern players are incorporating it into passages that are a little bit more tougher to play with like an alternate picking style. So for me, it's kind of like a breakthrough, in guitar playing.
Mm-hmm.
So at the same, so basically I'm learning some new techniques, and then even through just like playing a variety of scales, I've kind of discovered different patterns, that kind of transition a little bit easier. So yeah, I almost see it like a way of like speedrunning a video game. Like these guys find like different methods of getting through the game quicker, and it's kind of like the same way that I incorporate like my guitar playing. I've found like alternative paths to go through that make it a lot easier to play. So that's the way I'm kind of progressing as a guitar player.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that analogy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, how would I ask it? Well, it just makes sense. So obviously, like we talked about the skill part of it. As far as like a professional guitarist goes, like playing in bands and such, like, I guess what's in the future for not just Holy Grail, but like you as a professional?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to do like back in the day I do like some video game stuff, but I'd like to do some more video game covers. Not so much as like you see like you put Mega Man 3 intro metal. I don't want to make it like strictly like a metal album of video games, but just do the music justice. Having guitar incorporated into the music.
Mm-hmm.
But also, continuing on with Holy Grail, and then also right now, like I've been slowly working on a solo album that I'd like to release.
Is that the last chapter?
That was like an EP. What happened there was like I had my stuff stolen in Canada within that year, and we put up like a little campaign just to back me up with some cash so I can kind of repurchase the things that I lost. Mm-hmm. And that was my thanks to to the people that contributed to helping me retrieve my stuff. Mm-hmm. and then for people who were interested in like my own stuff. It's so to me, like looking back at it, there's so much I could have done better, but at the time it was what I was capable of doing. Mm-hmm. So I've never looked at it like, that song sucked or I didn't do that well, but it was, at that point in time where I was, that's what I was capable of doing. Mm-hmm. So this one will be like an actual, like, I feel like it'll be a solid album rather than it just being like a small EP.
Mm-hmm. And then are you going to is it like all you? And
yeah, maybe there might be some guest artists. I haven't figured the logistics yet, because a lot of times, like I've noticed too, it's a trend. If there's a guitar solo album out there, like almost every song features like an artist from someone else. Mm-hmm. It's like it's more of like a collaboration with other people.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being you. And I don't know if that's just to kind of promote the album, like oh my god, Jeff Loomis is playing on this song, and then Jason Richardson's playing on this, and Tosin Abasi's playing on that, and then they got George Lynch out of nowhere to play on this song. I guess it builds like a hype train, because all these other players are playing on this guy's album, but I kind of want this to be like this is me, and I don't have to worry on other players to get other people's interest in my album, because you won't be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want this album to be. And it's taken this long because I was pretty intimidated by a lot of the modern players, like wondering if I'm going to have to transition my playing into this type of style, or should I just be true to myself and true to your music? Yeah. Which I feel like back then record labels forced bands to convert. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, being a solo artist or being able to do things freely, like I don't feel like anyone should have the pressure to conform into what's hip and what's modern right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you ever considered doing like a solo tour?
Yeah, if it does really well, I'd rather, like, instead of doing like a solo, I'd like to do it in like a like a clinic form, so play song, ask questions, play song. It's kind of like what Steve Vai's been doing, like, and like John Petrucci, and they've all have like these guitar camps where you spend this much and you spend 2-3 days at a hotel resort and like just learn from them.
Yeah.
Kind of in that style would be kind of cool. Or doing half and half, just playing a solo album, and then the next show it's like more of like a clinic or a lesson style, as well as like bringing people up to jam with and things like that, because there's a 1,000 and more guitar players out there that are just like insanely good.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just it almost seemed like a whole pedestal thing. Like you can only jam if you're like the greatest guitar player, if you're famous or something. But like I'd like to incorporate like people that haven't been discovered yet, to play. It would be kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, because like the world's changing. It's the music industry isn't what it was, and I don't know. It's so different now.
Yeah. So, and obviously you've been in it. Obviously, been playing music for 17 years. Like, but when did you feel like you really got into the industry? Like, was it during Bond by Blood, or was it when you got to Holy Grail? That's when you really got in like the business side of it. Like, how did that start?
Yes. So with Bonded by Blood, I feel like the real industry part happened was once I actually signed the contract to the record label Earache. That felt like, wow, we're really doing things. And then like the upcoming tours like we've done with Bonded by Blood, I feel like that was where we got into like the business aspect, and the touring aspect really showed what these bands that we've looked up to are really doing. We're jumping into their shoes. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Once you get to that point, it's almost like friendly competition with other bands. Like they're releasing these albums here, so we have to release an album that can kind of compare with it or surpass it. That type of thing, where critics are reviewing your albums. And back then it was almost like, oh, they sound like Death Angel and they sound like this thrash album, but they almost have an old school feel of like Exodus, so things like that. When they throw names of these bands that you've grown up to, it's kind of crazy. Like you're thrown in this industry, and that's where it kind of hits you. Like, wow, I have to like really compete with the world basically, rather than just the local bands that you've been playing with.
The bar definitely got raised for you.
Yeah, exactly. And some people like that's a lot of pressure, and some people can use the pressure as like their advantage to pump out a new album that sounds really good. So yeah, and then I guess with Holy Grail, it just kind of continued, but you just kind of see certain patterns throughout some tours and some CD releases. But it's so like the future is so uncertain, because I don't know, like you see a lot of the older bands that that were really popular back then and where they are now. Like they used to pack out like stadiums, and then now they're just packing out like small venues. Like it's kind of scary, because you see like the music industry is kind of dying, because what's popular now is just like rap, pop, EDM, trap music, and house music. So I mean, overall like metal isn't where it was back then. And I mean, that's just something that I don't know if we're accepting of it, like, oh, it is what it is, or if we're trying to bring it back. But basically just we're doing this because we love it.
Yeah. So so say it goes that way, right, and metal becomes more of this kind of niche thing, would that something you would still kind of continue doing? You're like, this is who I am, this is what I love, or you're like, okay, I need to eventually go and pay some bills. Like, how would you kind of...
Yeah, that's basically how I'm doing it right now, because as a full-time employee for Guitar Center, music hasn't been able to pay for me, financially, which it's a big wake-up call, I mean, especially for a lot of people that they want to get into this business, it's not something that they can, rest on for their entire lives. You always have to have other means to support yourself rather than just relying based on music. And the people that have succeeded, they're like more of like entrepreneurs. They have merchandise to sell. They have, tutorials. They're instructors. They're teaching on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a means of, I guess, survival. Like how much do you really want it, and what are you going to do to make this happen? So for me, I'd like to do this as long as I could. I'd like to consider myself more of like a musician than just like a guy that plays metal. And so for a lot of people, I feel like they have to become like better musicians than to like limit yourself to just like one style in order to succeed, because you never know, like there might be like a big pop band or something out there like, hey, we need a guitar player, a session guitar player, we'll hire you for so and so. And what if you can't play the songs? You just missed out on a bigger opportunity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's that whole imagery, like, oh, he sold out, right? He's playing, with Madonna or something, so he's not cool anymore. Yeah. But I think people need to realize that, if they're a guitar player, they love they're a lover of music, regardless of what it is,
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I feel like that becomes that like old school high school mentality of like, you are this, you cannot go past that, we're a poser, you're a sellout, etc. But I think again, like as you get older, and everyone realizes, okay, well, hey, dude, we like the same bands, but like I also, as a musician, want like other things. Cause I think that's what happened to Marty Friedman, right? Like he was into pop and went to Japan for it, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of like made him explode in Japan, because he just followed what he loved to do. Mm-hmm. He didn't say like, oh, I'm going to stay with Megadeth, and this is it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's my thing. I always tell people, stay true to you, and then you should be good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, man. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I know, like, when we were trying to schedule this, like, obviously you're doing your thing, you're running around, and like trying to manage all of like the schedules. So.
Oh yeah, not a problem.
I really appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna let you go, and yeah, man, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
All right, have a good one, Alex.
All right, you too.